Welcome back to MBA Recaps, where we break down the best business school lessons without the sky-high tuition. Imagine running a restaurant. You have top-tier chefs, the best ingredients, a packed dining room, and yet, orders take forever. Customers get restless, tables don't turn over, and reviews start tanking. What's the issue? It's not the kitchen's speed. It's that the expediter, the person coordinating everything, is overwhelmed. Plates sit ready, but without someone directing the flow, they don't make it to tables. The entire system chokes at a single point. Fix that, and suddenly, everything moves. Businesses often mistake motion for progress, efficiency for effectiveness, and assume that working harder means getting further. The Goal by Eliyahu Goldratt rips this illusion apart. It doesn't just challenge conventional business wisdom, it obliterates it. Because what if the real problem isn't how much you're doing, but where the bottleneck is? Now scale that idea to a factory, a supply chain, an entire corporation. This is what the Goal exposes: the unseen constraints that throttle performance while businesses waste resources trying to fix the wrong things. Companies obsess over cost-cutting, efficiency metrics, and individual productivity, but they rarely stop to ask, what's actually limiting our growth? Not in theory, not on paper, but in the real, practical world. Goldratt's revelation is as unsettling as it is transformative. Your business will never move faster than its slowest process. And until you find that constraint, the one real choke point in the system, everything else is just noise. So if you've ever felt like you're pushing harder but not getting ahead, you're not crazy. You're just looking in the wrong place. And once you see the problem clearly, the solution is almost too simple to believe. Picture a relay race. 4 runners, 1 baton. The first sprinter explodes off the blocks, moving like lightning. The second is just as fast, pushing forward with effortless speed. The third, a powerhouse, covering ground in record time. And then there's the last runner. He's struggling, his form is off, his legs are heavy, and despite the perfect handoff, he's barely making progress. The entire team's fate now hinges on him. It doesn't matter how fast the others were. Their victory, their time, their potential, it's all wasted because the last runner is the slowest. This is exactly how businesses, factories, supply chains, and even personal productivity work. The slowest process, the weakest link, determines the speed of everything else. You can optimize every other stage, pour money into better equipment, hire more workers, boost efficiency everywhere else. But until you fix that one constraint, the entire system remains stuck. Think about a traffic jam. 100 cars could be lined up at a green light, but if the first driver hesitates, nothing moves. In a restaurant, you can have the best chefs in the world, but if the server is backed up taking orders, customers wait. In a hospital, the most skilled surgeons are useless if there aren't enough operating rooms. The constraint is never everywhere. It's always in one critical spot. Most companies make a fatal mistake. They focus on improving everything instead of fixing the right thing. They upgrade machines that weren't the problem, hire more staff in areas that weren't overloaded, or push workers to be more productive when they were never the issue to begin with. It's like widening a freeway at every section except for the one bottlenecked bridge. No matter what you do elsewhere, that single stretch controls the entire flow. Goldratt's theory of constraints is brutally simple. Find the bottleneck, fix the bottleneck, and only then worry about everything else. Because the fastest way to improve performance isn't by doing more, it's by removing the one thing that's slowing everything down. Imagine you're filling a bathtub, but the water is barely trickling out. You check the water supply, plenty of pressure. You look at the pipes, nothing wrong. You replace the faucet, upgrade the plumbing, even buy a brand new bathtub, but the water still drips out painfully slow. Then, finally, you check the one thing that actually matters: the half-clogged valve controlling the flow. A 10-minute fix, and suddenly the tub fills effortlessly. This is how most businesses operate. They focus on everything except the real problem. They chase efficiency, cut costs, optimize processes, without realizing that one single constraint is holding everything back. Goldratt's 5 focusing steps in the Goal provide a systematic way to identify and eliminate these constraints so that the entire system moves faster, smoother, and more profitably. Step 1. Identify the constraint. If your entire production line, business, or workflow were a traffic system, Where's the jam? Constraints can be physical, a slow machine, a limited number of employees, a supply shortage, or policy-driven, unnecessary approvals, outdated procedures, rigid scheduling. Example, a manufacturing plant might have state-of-the-art machinery, but if one key machine can only process 50 units per hour while everything else handles 100, that's the constraint. It doesn't matter how fast the other machines work. This one slow stage is limiting output. Step 2. Exploit the constraint. Before throwing money or resources at the problem, maximize what you already have. If a machine is the constraint, are you using it efficiently? If a salesperson is the bottleneck, are they spending time on the right customers? Most constraints don't need replacement, they need better utilization. Example, a hospital struggling with long patient wait times realizes its real bottleneck isn't the number of doctors, but the time wasted between appointments. By reducing unnecessary paperwork and ensuring seamless transitions, they significantly improve efficiency without hiring more staff. Step 3. Subordinate everything else to the constraint. The entire system must be aligned to support the bottleneck. There's no point in letting other processes move faster if the constraint can't keep up. Instead of overwhelming it, adjust everything else to match its pace. Example, a warehouse shipping department struggles to process packages quickly. The issue, labels aren't being printed fast enough. Instead of pushing workers to move faster, the company reorganizes workflows so that labels are always ready in advance, instantly reducing delays. Step 4. Elevate the constraint. If the constraint is still limiting performance after full optimization, now you invest. Buy another machine, hire more workers, expand capacity, but only after you've exhausted all other options. Otherwise, you're just wasting money fixing the wrong thing. Example, a software company struggling with slow product releases realizes that their QA team is the bottleneck. After streamlining testing and automation, they still can't meet demand. Now it makes sense to hire additional testers. Step 5. Repeat the process. The moment one bottleneck is resolved, another emerges. It's like traffic. Fix one congested street and the jam just moves elsewhere. That's why TOC is an ongoing process. Businesses must constantly identify and optimize constraints to maintain continuous improvement. Example, a coffee shop fixes its slow espresso machine issue, only to realize that the new bottleneck is now customers waiting for their orders. The next constraint to tackle? Speeding up drink assembly and handoff. Goldrat's 5 focusing steps reveal a simple but powerful truth. Businesses don't fail because they're inefficient. They fail because they improve the wrong things. When you focus on constraints, you don't just make progress, you make the right progress. Amazon's fulfillment centers, a masterclass in eliminating constraints. Imagine a warehouse the size of 28 football fields, stacked floor to ceiling with millions of products. Orders flood in every second. Shoes, laptops, kitchen appliances, books, all needing to be picked, packed, and shipped at near lightning speed. Now picture a single bottleneck in that system. A slow sorting process, a jammed conveyor belt, a delay in barcode scanning. At Amazon's scale, a minor inefficiency doesn't just cause inconvenience, it can cost millions in lost revenue per minute. Amazon's fulfillment centers operate on one fundamental truth from the goal. A system is only as fast as its slowest process. While most companies focus on cost-cutting or workforce efficiency, Amazon focuses on constraint elimination to ensure that every order moves at maximum speed. Step 1. Identifying the constraint. For Amazon, every fulfillment center is a complex web of robots, employees, software, and supply chain logistics. Over the years, the company has faced several major constraints. Slow picking and packing. Early on, human workers had to walk miles each day inside warehouses to pick items, creating inefficiencies. Sorting bottlenecks. Orders used to be manually sorted before being sent to the appropriate shipping station. Last-mile delivery delays. Even after items left the warehouse, external shipping partners, UPS, FedEx, sometimes became the bottleneck. Step 2. Exploiting the constraint. Instead of immediately throwing money at expansion or hiring more workers, Amazon asked, are we using our resources efficiently? The answer was often no, so they looked for smarter ways to maximize existing processes. Kiva robots. Instead of making workers walk to shelves, Amazon introduced robots that bring the shelves to the workers. This small change eliminated wasted walking time, reducing the picking process from hours to mere minutes. Zone-based sorting. Instead of sorting orders at the end of the fulfillment process, packages are now pre-sorted by location before they even leave the shelf. AI and machine learning for demand forecasting. To prevent fulfillment center overload, Amazon predicts what will be ordered before it happens and shifts inventory closer to customers in advance. Step 3. Subordinating everything else to the constraint. Once Amazon identified that warehouse efficiency was the constraint, they restructured everything else to support it. Algorithms control workflows. Every worker's task is dictated by AI, ensuring they don't waste time on unnecessary movements. Standardized workstations. Packing stations were redesigned to reduce hand movements, cutting seconds off each order, a seemingly small change that, at scale, saves millions of hours annually. Real-time tracking. Warehouse management software tracks every item down to the exact shelf location so that no time is wasted searching for misplaced inventory. Step 4. Elevating the constraint. Once Amazon optimized the fulfillment process, they invested heavily in increasing capacity. Same-day and one-day delivery. The company built new fulfillment centers closer to major metro areas, reducing the need for long-distance shipping. Acquiring whole distribution networks. To eliminate bottlenecks from third-party carriers, Amazon created its own air cargo fleet, delivery vans, and last-mile logistics network. Robotic sortation centers. To handle the increasing demand, Amazon introduced robotic sortation facilities, further automating package routing and removing human limitations. Step 5. Repeating the process. Each time Amazon solves a bottleneck, a new constraint emerges, and they tackle it with the same TIOC-driven mindset. Once warehouse efficiency was optimized, the shipping network became the next bottleneck, so Amazon launched its own logistics division. When shipping was no longer the issue, last-mile delivery delays became the problem. So Amazon introduced Amazon Flex, paying everyday drivers to deliver packages. As last-mile delivery improved, customer demand skyrocketed, and supply chain inventory management became the next focus. Amazon doesn't just improve processes, it fixes the right processes. They optimize first, then invest. Rather than just throwing money at new warehouses, they first made existing ones more efficient. Every solved constraint leads to a new one. Amazon's success isn't because they eliminated all bottlenecks. It's because they continuously find and fix them. Their entire business operates like a living case study of the goal. Amazon's approach proves that businesses don't need more resources. They need better bottleneck management. Because the difference between a company that struggles and one that dominates isn't how fast they move, it's how quickly they find and eliminate the things that are slowing them down. Imagine you're on a rowing team. Everyone is paddling with perfect form, their strokes synchronized, their muscles pushing to the limit. Each individual rower is performing at peak efficiency, but somehow the boat isn't moving any faster. Why? Because the coxswain, the person steering, is pointing you in the wrong direction. No matter how hard everyone rows, the team isn't making real progress. This is what happens when businesses focus on local efficiency instead of system-wide performance. Managers love measuring individual productivity, faster machines, higher employee output, quicker turnaround times in separate departments. But what if all that effort isn't making the business any more profitable? What if, like the rowing team, everyone is working at full speed in the wrong direction? The illusion of efficiency. Most businesses assume that if every part of the operation runs at maximum efficiency, the whole system will too. That's a dangerous assumption. Just because a machine can produce 1,000 units per hour doesn't mean it should. If the next step in the process can only handle 500, you're creating an unnecessary pileup of inventory, wasting time, money, and storage space. Take a manufacturing plant. The metal stamping department might be producing parts twice as fast as usual, hitting record-breaking numbers. But if the assembly line downstream can't keep up, those extra parts just sit there, unfinished, unused, wasting space and tying up capital. The factory hasn't gotten more productive, it's just gotten better at building a bigger backlog. The traffic jam effect. Picture a highway. Every car is moving as efficiently as possible, engines humming, tires rolling smoothly. But up ahead, a traffic light is stuck on red. The front few cars stop. The ones behind slow down, then more cars arrive faster than the light can clear them. Suddenly, you have a jam. That's exactly what happens in a business when different departments focus only on their own efficiency. One stage moves faster than the system can handle, and work starts piling up instead of flowing smoothly. The hidden cost of overproduction. Goldratt's The Goal makes this clear. Doing more isn't the same as making progress. Companies that obsess over efficiency in isolated areas often make things worse by producing more than needed, leading to excessive inventory, wasting capital on materials that aren't turning into finished products, overloading bottlenecks, making the real constraints even worse. A classic example, airlines. Some focus on minimizing turnaround time at the gate, ensuring that planes leave exactly on schedule. But what happens if a flight arrives early and there's no open gate? The plane sits on the tarmac waiting, passengers get frustrated, connecting flights get missed. The illusion of efficiency, a fast departure process, means nothing if the airport as a whole isn't running smoothly. The real solution, synchronization, not speed. Goldratt's theory of constraints teaches us that a system should only move as fast as its bottleneck. Instead of pushing every department or process to its maximum speed, companies should focus on optimizing the flow of work through the entire system. Manufacturers should slow down machines that produce parts faster than the assembly line can use. Retailers should restock based on real customer demand, not supplier schedules. Hospitals should schedule surgeries based on ICU bed availability, not just how fast doctors can operate. The goal isn't to make every part of the system more efficient. The goal is to make the whole system more effective. Because a business that focuses on local efficiency might look busy, but a business that focuses on system-wide optimization actually makes money. The drum buffer rope system, controlling the flow of work like a well-orchestrated symphony. Imagine a marching band. The percussion section sets the rhythm, the drum. Every musician listens to that beat and plays in sync. Now picture what would happen if each musician played at their own pace. The flutes rush ahead, the brass section lags behind, and the entire performance turns into an ear-splitting disaster. That's exactly what happens in a business when different parts of the system operate at their own speed, instead of moving in harmony with the constraint. One department overproduces, another struggles to keep up, and instead of smooth workflow, you get bottlenecks, excess inventory, and wasted resources. Goldratt's drum buffer rope system is the solution, a simple but powerful method that synchronizes production to match the real capacity of the system's constraint. It's how companies stop overproducing, reduce waste, and ensure smooth, uninterrupted workflow. Step 1. The drum, setting the pace. Every system has a constraint, whether it's a machine, a skilled worker, a supply chain limitation, or a critical step in the process. This constraint determines the maximum possible output of the entire system. The drum represents this bottleneck. Just like a drummer in a marching band, it sets the rhythm that everything else must follow. No department, no process, no resource should work faster than the constraint itself. Example, a bakery can only bake 200 loaves of bread per hour because the oven is the bottleneck. It doesn't matter if the dough mixing station can produce 400 loaves per hour because the system can never move faster than the oven. Without the drum, you'd see dough piling up, wasting space, resources, and creating chaos. But by making the oven the drum, the entire system stays in sync. Step 2. The buffer, protecting the flow. Now, what happens if the constraint stops working, even for a short time? The entire system slows down. That's why Goldratt introduces the buffer, a small inventory of work placed right before the constraint to ensure it never sits idle. Think of a busy restaurant. The grill station might be the slowest part of the kitchen, so there should always be a few uncooked patties ready to go, but not so many that they overwhelm the station. Example, in an auto assembly plant, if the painting station is the constraint, there should always be a few cars waiting in line before painting. If there are too few, the painters will sit idle. If there are too many, space gets clogged up. The buffer ensures just the right amount of work keeps flowing. The goal of the buffer is to protect the constraint without overloading it, keeping the system running smoothly without creating unnecessary inventory. Step 3. The rope, pulling work through the system. If the drum sets the pace and the buffer protects it, then the rope is the mechanism that ensures no part of the system works ahead of schedule. The rope is a communication system that controls the release of work into the system so that no station produces more than what the constraint can handle. Example: think of a manufacturing plant where materials arrive too fast and stack up before they can be processed. The rope signals when to start and stop new production, preventing excess inventory buildup. Another example: imagine a hospital ER. If too many patients are admitted at once, the ICU, a major constraint, gets overwhelmed. The rope would be a triage system, ensuring only the most urgent cases are prioritized, keeping patient flow manageable instead of chaotic. The rope prevents overproduction and ensures only as much work enters the system as the constraint can process. Why drum buffer rope works so well? Most companies do the opposite of this system. They push work as fast as possible, thinking that more production equals more profit. But without considering constraints, they create excess inventory, overworked employees, bottlenecks that slow everything down instead of speeding things up. Drum buffer rope flips this thinking. The drum ensures everything moves at the right pace. The buffer ensures the constraint never stops working. The rope prevents work from flooding in too fast. When companies use DBR, they stop focusing on individual efficiency and start focusing on system-wide effectiveness, the only thing that actually improves profitability. Because at the end of the day, a system isn't productive when every part is working at full speed. It's productive when everything moves in sync. Picture a call center handling thousands of customer service requests daily. Phones are ringing, agents are talking, screens are flashing with ticket numbers. Management pushes for maximum efficiency, tracking how many calls each agent handles per hour. To boost productivity, they set strict time limits on calls, encouraging employees to resolve issues as quickly as possible. At first, it seems like a great strategy. More calls handled per hour must mean better service, right? But here's the catch. Customers aren't getting their problems fully solved. Rushed agents end calls too soon, forcing frustrated customers to call back. This creates even more traffic, jamming the system and making wait times even worse. The real constraint isn't agent speed. It's repeat calls due to unresolved issues. Step 1. Identifying the constraint. Goldrat's theory of constraints teaches us that the biggest problem isn't always the most obvious one. Most call centers assume their constraint is agent availability, meaning if they just hire more people, they can handle more calls. But a deeper look often reveals a different reality. The real constraint might be customer issue resolution, not the number of calls handled. A single poorly trained agent or an unclear company policy could be creating thousands of extra calls per week. A clunky internal system that forces agents to click through endless menus before finding answers might be adding unnecessary seconds to every call, multiplying into hours of lost time per day. If a call center is flooded with repeat calls, the system is broken. Step 2. Exploiting the constraint. Instead of just hiring more agents, a better strategy is to increase issue resolution rates so that customers don't have to call back. This means giving agents more training on resolving issues in one call rather than pushing for shorter calls. Improving the knowledge base so that agents can find answers faster. Reducing unnecessary scripts and allowing agents to actually listen to customers instead of rushing them off the phone. Example: a telecom company found that 30% of their call volume came from customers calling back about the same issue. By training agents to resolve more issues on the first call, they reduced total call volume by 25% without hiring a single new agent. Step 3. Subordinating everything else to the constraint. Once the constraint is identified, let's say it's repeat calls, the entire system must be adjusted to support fixing it. Bad strategy: keep pushing agents to rush through calls. Good strategy: adjust scheduling, call routing, and training so that the focus is on resolving customer issues fully. Example: a tech support center noticed that one specific type of issue, password resets, was clogging up their call lines. They implemented an automated password reset system, freeing up agents to handle more complex issues. Total call volume dropped by 40% overnight. Step 4. Elevating the constraint. Once the process is optimized, then, and only then, it might make sense to increase resources if the constraint is still limiting performance. Options include hiring additional agents, but only if necessary, adding self-service options like chatbots or FAQ pages to reduce simple issue calls, using AI-driven call routing to ensure the right agent handles the right issue. Example, a financial services company noticed that complex cases took twice as long because customers were often routed to the wrong agents. By introducing smart call routing, which directed calls based on issue type and agent skill level, they cut average call time by 30%, meaning they handled more calls with the same number of agents. Step 5. Repeating that no system stays optimized forever. Once the main constraint is resolved, a new one will appear. If repeat calls are reduced, the next constraint might be long wait times. If wait times are fixed, the next constraint might be poor customer satisfaction due to robotic scripts. If customer satisfaction improves, the next constraint might be high agent turnover due to stress. Each constraint must be addressed one at a time, continuously improving the system. The biggest bottleneck is often not the number of agents, but unresolved issues. Speed isn't the goal. First call resolution is. Fix the bottleneck first, then scale the operation. A well-optimized call center handles more calls, not by working harder, but by reducing unnecessary repeat calls. At the end of the day, the best way to make a call center more efficient isn't to push agents to work faster. It's to remove the reasons customers have to call in the first place. Imagine a team of software engineers working on a new app. The coders are fast, skilled, and pushing out new features every day. But somehow, nothing is getting released on time. Deadlines slip, features sit unfinished. Managers push for more engineers, hoping that adding people will speed things up. But the delays persist. What's the real problem? Coding isn't the constraint, something else is. This is where Goldratt's theory of constraints, TOS, exposes a brutal truth. Most software projects don't fail because of slow coding. They fail because the real bottleneck is hidden somewhere else in the system. Step 1. Identifying the constraint. Most managers assume that the bottleneck in software development is the number of engineers. If progress is slow, their first instinct is to hire more developers. But that's a classic mistake. The real constraint could be slow QA, quality assurance. If testing can't keep up with development, finished code just sits in limbo. Unclear requirements. Developers waste time rewriting features because the specifications weren't clear up front. Code review bottlenecks. Engineers finish their tasks, but their code waits for review, delaying everything. Deployment and DevOps issues. Even when the code is ready, getting it live takes forever due to outdated infrastructure. Example: a fintech startup thought their problem was slow development speed. After analysis, they discovered that 70% of their delays came from QA bottlenecks. Developers finished work quickly, but the testing team was overloaded. The real fix wasn't hiring more engineers, it was improving the testing process. Step 2. Exploiting the constraint. Once the constraint is identified, don't throw more resources at it. Fix it first. If QA is the bottleneck, then automate repetitive tests to free up manual testers. Shift testing earlier in the process, shift left testing, so bugs are caught sooner. Limit the number of new features entering the pipeline until testing can keep up. If code reviews are the bottleneck, then implement peer reviews instead of relying on a few senior engineers. Set up automated linting to catch minor errors before human review. Assign reviews based on expertise instead of waiting for a single person. Example: a gaming company noticed that their biggest delays weren't in development, but in deployment approvals. Engineers would finish features, but getting them live took weeks. By streamlining approvals and introducing automated CI/CD pipelines, they cut deployment times from 10 days to under 24 hours. Step 3. Subordinating everything else to the constraint. Once the bottleneck is identified, the rest of the system must adjust to support it. Bad strategy. Keep pushing developers to write more code when QA can't keep up. Good strategy. Ensure work only enters development at a pace QA can handle. Example: a SaaS company had engineers developing features faster than they could be tested and deployed. The result? A massive backlog of unfinished code. The solution was to limit work in progress, WIP. no new features were started until the current ones were fully tested and deployed. Step 4. Elevating the constraint. If the constraint is still holding back progress after optimization, then it makes sense to add more resources. If QA is still slow, hire more testers or introduce AI-based test automation. If code reviews are a bottleneck, train more senior engineers to review code. If deployment is slow, invest in cloud-based infrastructure for faster releases. Example, a mobile app company optimized their testing process but still faced slowdowns. The constraint was now manual testing on multiple devices. The fix, they invested in cloud-based testing farms, allowing automated tests to run across multiple devices simultaneously. Step 5. Repeating the process. Once one constraint is removed, another one will appear. If QA is fixed, the next constraint might be slow UI/UX approvals. If deployment speeds up, the next bottleneck might be customer onboarding. If onboarding is smooth, the next problem might be slow customer feedback cycles. Example, a health tech company fixed their DevOps pipeline, allowing engineers to push features faster. But then they hit a new bottleneck, compliance approvals. Now the biggest constraint wasn't coding, QA, or deployment, it was legal reviews. The team had to focus on streamlining that process next. The constraint is rarely the number of engineers, it's often QA, code review, or deployment. Improving local efficiencies doesn't help if the constraint remains unfixed. Focus on synchronizing the entire system, not just speeding up individual parts. Once one constraint is resolved, another will emerge. Continuous improvement is key. At the end of the day, software development isn't about writing more code. It's about shipping working code faster. And that only happens when teams stop focusing on speed alone and start fixing the real bottlenecks. Imagine a sales team celebrating a record-breaking month, 10,000 new leads in the pipeline. The marketing team is thrilled, the CRM is packed with potential customers, and the company's leadership is expecting a surge in revenue. But then, something strange happens. Sales don't increase. Deals aren't closing. Sales reps are overwhelmed. Leads go cold before anyone follows up. Instead of more revenue, all they have is a bloated list of names and wasted marketing dollars. What went wrong? The bottleneck wasn't the number of leads, it was the lead conversion process. Step 1. Identifying the constraint. Most companies assume that more leads equals more sales, but if the sales team can't handle the volume effectively, all that marketing spend is wasted. Common sales and marketing bottlenecks include unqualified leads. Marketing floods the system with prospects, but most aren't the right fit. Slow follow-up times. Sales reps take too long to reach out and leads go cold. Overloaded sales reps. Too many leads and not enough bandwidth to nurture them. Weak lead nurturing. Potential customers aren't engaged properly, so they drop out. Complicated sales processes. Too many steps, approvals, or unclear offers slow conversions. Example, a B2B software company generated thousands of leads through content marketing. But after analyzing their pipeline, they realized only 5% of leads ever got a follow-up call. The real problem wasn't lead generation. It was the inability to prioritize and act on the right leads quickly. Step 2. Exploiting the constraint. Once the constraint is identified, the next step is maximizing its efficiency. If the bottleneck is unqualified leads, then implement better lead scoring to filter out low-quality prospects. Align marketing and sales on who the ideal customer before launching campaigns. Improve targeting so ads reach the right audience instead of casting a wide, ineffective net. If the bottleneck is slow follow-up times, then use automation to send immediate emails, booking links, or reminders. Assign leads dynamically to available sales reps instead of letting them sit in a queue. Reduce internal handoffs. Every extra step delays action. Example, a real estate agency found that leads contacted within 5 minutes were 10x more likely to convert than those followed up with the next day. They automated lead distribution, ensuring prospects got a call within minutes, and conversion rates skyrocketed. Step 3. Subordinating everything else to the constraint. Now that the bottleneck is identified, all other parts of the system must adjust to support it. Bad strategy. Keep increasing ad spend to generate more leads. Good strategy. Optimize lead handling so more of the existing leads convert. Example, A SaaS company was spending millions on paid ads, but only converting 1% of leads. Instead of increasing their budget, they optimized the follow-up process, introducing a structured email call sequence that improved conversions without increasing ad spend. Step 4. Elevating the constraint. Once the existing system is fully optimized, then it makes sense to scale up. If the sales team is still overloaded, hire more reps or add inside sales support. If conversion rates are still low, invest in better sales training. If deals are getting stuck, introduce limited-time offers or better pricing models. Example: a luxury travel company improved lead follow-ups but still faced conversion issues. The constraint had shifted. Now the problem was too many options overwhelming customers. By streamlining offers and using personalized recommendations, conversions jumped by 40%. Step 5. Repeating the process. Once one constraint is fixed, another emerges. If follow-ups improve, the next bottleneck might be customer objections. If sales reps handle more leads, the next issue might be pricing barriers. If deals close faster, the next constraint might be customer retention. Example: a business consulting firm optimized lead generation and follow-up, but their constraint shifted to slow contract approvals. They streamlined their legal process, cutting weeks off sales cycles and unlocking massive revenue growth. More leads don't always mean more sales. Conversion bottlenecks matter more. Focusing on fixing the lead-to-sale process is often more profitable than increasing ad spend. The constraint shifts. Once follow-ups improve, the next bottleneck might be objections, pricing, or retention. The goal isn't just to get leads. It's to turn leads into paying customers as efficiently as possible. At the end of the day, businesses don't win by collecting leads. They win by converting them. And that only happens when they fix the real bottlenecks in the sales process. Why fixing the right problem is the only path to real growth. Imagine you're pushing a car stuck in the mud. You're sweating, straining, using all your strength, but the car barely moves. A bystander watches for a moment, then walks over and says, "Your parking brake is on." That's what most businesses do. They push harder, work longer, hire more people, spend more money, without realizing that their real problem isn't effort. It's the hidden constraint holding everything back. Goldrat's theory of constraints reveals a fundamental truth. Every system has a weakest link, and no improvement matters unless it fixes that link. Companies waste billions optimizing things that don't move the needle, like making non-bottleneck machines faster, pushing workers to be more productive, or flooding sales teams with leads they can't handle. But real progress doesn't come from working harder. It comes from fixing the constraint that's limiting the whole system. Businesses don't fail because they're inefficient. They fail because they improve the wrong things. Speeding up non-bottlenecks does nothing if the constraint isn't fixed. Success comes from improving the slowest, most limiting part of the system. The fastest way to grow isn't by doing more. It's by removing the one thing slowing you down. If manufacturing can't keep up, don't sell more. Fix production. If sales teams are overloaded, don't generate more leads. Optimize follow-ups. If software development is slow, don't hire more engineers. Fix the real bottleneck, like QA or deployment. The 5 focusing steps are a cycle, not a one-time fix. Once you eliminate one constraint, another will appear. Continuous improvement isn't about perfection. It's about constantly identifying and fixing bottlenecks. More work doesn't mean more progress. The drum buffer rope system teaches us that work should flow in sync with the constraint, not faster than it can handle. Overloading the system just creates backlogs, delays, and waste. TOC applies everywhere, not just factories. Amazon mastered it in logistics. Software teams use it to streamline development. Sales teams fix conversion bottlenecks instead of blindly chasing leads. Call centers eliminate repeat calls instead of just hiring more agents. The businesses that win are the ones that focus on the right problems. Most companies are drowning in data, reports, and efficiency metrics, but very few stop to ask, what's actually stopping us from making more money today? The companies that thrive, Amazon, Toyota, Tesla, aren't just efficient. They're constraint breakers. They don't focus on everything. They focus on the right thing at the right time. So ask yourself, where is your bottleneck? Because once you find it and fix it, everything else will follow.